You don't notice when the mushrooms thin out, but the trees are different now. Taller, straighter, tighter together. You press forward into a windless silence, the kind that makes your own breath sound too loud. Your feet sink into a moss-covered floor, damp with centuries. And up ahead, through the folds of the fog, a single stone gate appears, covered in vines, cracked by time, and entirely out of place. You've entered the realm of sacred gardens, specifically the famous medieval garden of Alnwick, nestled in Northumberland, England. But don't get too cozy. This isn't just a garden of roses and bees. No, this is the poison garden. Yes, really, everything here can kill you. Deadly nightshade, hemlock, wolfsbane. Even Ricinus communis, the castor oil plant, growing like a friendly houseplant that just happens to be the source of ricin. In this section of the castle grounds, everything beautiful has teeth. You peer at a white bell-shaped flower dangling from a bush. It's Brugmansia, sometimes called Angel's Trumpet. Looks like something from a Disney princess scene, right? Soft, dreamlike, glowing with dew. But touch it too long, or breathe in too deeply, and you could spend the night hallucinating voices, or never waking up. And yet, it's also been used for spiritual rituals across South America for centuries. Shamans used it to enter trance states, to travel between worlds. Botanists still argue whether the line between poison and medicine is simply dosage or intention. But let's turn the page to a very different place, a softer place. You're no longer among stone walls and iron fences. You're in Japan now, in Kyoto, and you've just arrived at the Saihoji Temple, also called the Moss Temple. Imagine a sea of green, not grass, not even plants in the usual sense, but moss, over 120 varieties. It coats the ground like velvet, climbs the stones, dresses the water basins, softens the steps of monks and wanderers alike. You kneel beside a rock and touch the surface. It's cool, damp, and impossibly soft. Like time stopped here and forgot to restart. And that's the idea. This temple garden is designed to slow you down. You aren't meant to rush. You're meant to notice. How the light bends around a maple leaf. How one stone stands slightly crooked. How the air holds more silence than sound. It's not flashy, not dangerous, but in this quiet place, you feel changed. A gentle reminder that not all powerful plants announce themselves. Some simply persist. Across the world in the heart of Vietnam, the lotus blooms. It's not flashy either, until you realize what it's done. The lotus can grow through mud, water, even toxic sludge, and still emerge spotless. Its petals are water repellent. Its roots can lie dormant for decades. And when it blooms, it's as if the whole pond pauses to admire. In Vietnamese culture, it's not just a flower, it's a lesson. Purity rising through adversity. Calm in the face of chaos. An answer to the unspoken question, can beauty survive hardship? You pluck a petal, not to keep, just to feel. It's smooth, waxy, almost artificial, but alive undeniably. Some stories say the Buddha himself was born from a lotus. Others tell of warriors meditating beside lotus ponds to find clarity before battle. In modern times, its seeds are used for food and medicine. Its image appears on currency, temples, tattoos. Still, no matter the story, the flower floats on. Your next step brings you to another kind of garden. Wild, humid, humming. You're in Brazil now. Specifically, the private garden of famed landscape architect Roberto Burle Marx. But this isn't just a garden, it's a revolution in green. Burle Marx was one of the first in the modern era to treat native Brazilian plants not just as greenery, but as heroes. Palms, bromeliads, massive twisting philodendrons. And the design? Abstract. flowing like rivers, using plants as brushstrokes. You trace the edge of a stone path shaped like a music note, curving through a forest of color. Here, a blue palm stretches high, Copanicia prunifera. Its trunk pale as moonlight, its leaves like fans for forgotten gods. There, the flaming sword plant, Vreesia splendens, bold red shooting through green, like a dancer frozen mid-step. The garden buzzes with birds and insects. Life. Burl Marx's garden isn't a museum. It's alive and unruly. A soft breeze passes, and with it a whiff of citrus. You follow the scent to a grove. Orange trees, but not your usual kind. This one is the Seville orange, bitter, thorny, ancient. Once used as medicine, now more common in marmalade. Its history? It rode with Spanish ships, crossed oceans, took root in new worlds. Some say the Crusaders brought it back from the Middle East. Others say its seeds were smuggled by monks. Either way, here it stands. A piece of global migration disguised as fruit. You peel one, just a little. The scent sharpens. Fresh. Zesty. Reminding you that some plants carry their whole history in scent. Back in Europe, noble gardens were built to impress. But in the Americas, gardens were survival maps. Step now into the ancient terraces of the Inca in Peru. Specifically, moray. Stone rings carved into the mountain, each one a microclimate. You descend slowly, each level warmer than the last. Here they tested corn. There, potatoes. Over there, quinoa. Not just farming, but experimentation. Long before greenhouses, this was genetic research. Botanists still argue how precise the Incas were. But one thing's clear, they weren't just gardeners. They were engineers of ecosystems. You pause at a carved rock with water running across it. Irrigation, but also art. Now shift again, to Morocco, a riad garden. You enter through wooden doors into a courtyard. It smells of orange blossom, mint, and old stone. The geometry is perfect. Tiles, fountains, symmetry. But the plants, wild with meaning. Pomegranate trees, symbols of abundance. Olives, ancient, twisted, sacred. Mint, growing from every crack, like laughter that refuses to die. You sip tea here, sweet, sharp, soothing. And you understand what gardens can be. Not just food, not just beauty, but memory. The garden dissolves. Not in a dramatic cinematic fade, but like waking from a deep dream. The air changes first, then the color. And suddenly, you're no longer in Morocco or Kyoto or Northumberland. You're standing in a whispering green hallway, ancient, unmarked, and damp. The walls here, not stone, not wood, just plants. Tall, arching stalks that creak softly as the wind hums through them. You're inside a cathedral of bamboo. This is Anji, China, home to one of the oldest and most sacred bamboo forests on Earth, the Anji Bamboo Sea. You walk a winding path of polished stones. Above you, the bamboo sways, more than 50 species reaching upward like curious green spires. Each stalk is hollow, each joint a drum of sound if the wind gets playful. And right now, it is. Bamboo has no bark, no branches to speak of. Just rhythm, just quiet strength. You remember the first time you held a pair of bamboo chopsticks. Or maybe a woven mat. Or maybe nothing at all, because this plant often hides in plain sight, until you see the scale of it here. It's not a tree, it's not grass. It's something between, something entirely its own. It grows faster than almost anything on the planet. Some species can shoot up nearly a meter in a day. You could take a nap and wake up in a forest that wasn't there before, which, depending on how much tea you drank in Morocco, might have already happened. But bamboo isn't just speed, it's a symbol. In Chinese philosophy, it's been associated with the virtues of a gentleman: upright, humble, and strong inside, yet bending without breaking. And still, botanists still argue whether bamboo counts as true wood. Structurally, it behaves like it. Biologically, it doesn't. But spiritually, it's hard not to feel reverent here. You pause by a clearing where the stalks grow denser and the light thins into a green twilight. Someone once wrote that walking through a bamboo forest feels like being inside a living breath. You get it now. But the air begins to change again. There's salt in it. A breeze off the coast. You're shifting westward, and now you're in South Africa. More precisely, in the heart of Kirstenbosch Botanical Garden, where the foot of Table Mountain rolls down into the arms of a floral kingdom that exists nowhere else on Earth. Here, the plants look unfamiliar, almost alien. Fynbos, they call it. You lean in close to a Protea cineroides, also known as the king protea. It looks like a thistle crossed with a dream catcher. Bright pink, almost absurdly regal. The kind of plant that shouldn't survive harsh mountain winds, but it thrives. Proteas don't need rich soil. They don't need gentle weather. What they need is fire. Yes, fire. The seeds of many South African fynbos plants only germinate after flames pass through. Like phoenixes with better floral design. It sounds made up, doesn't it? But fire is part of their life cycle. A controlled burn can reset an entire mountainside in bloom. You crouch by a patch of leucadendron, yellow and gold, sunlit and humming with bees. And in that moment, the idea of destruction as renewal finally clicks. Maybe it's not a lesson just for plants. Farther down the path, you find another wonder. The silver tree, Leucadendron argenteum. Covered in shimmering silky hairs. When the wind moves, it glows like moonlight in motion. Legend says these trees once guided sailors by reflecting the stars. Botanists argue whether the hair coating is for moisture retention or UV protection. Probably both, maybe neither. You leave the garden with shoes soaked in dew and a head full of contradictions. Next, the trail takes you high, very high, to the Alps. But you're not visiting ski slopes. You're looking for Edelweiss. You climb a gentle slope of rocks and see it at last. A small white flower, star-shaped and soft as felt. It doesn't look like much. And yet, this little bloom has become one of the most romantic symbols in all of Europe. You lean close. The petals are thick, almost fuzzy. Designed to survive harsh winds and freezing nights. It's not delicate, it's armored. In the 19th century, suitors would climb treacherous heights just to pick one for their beloved. Sometimes they didn't make it back. Still, Edelweiss became a symbol of bravery, devotion, and, some say, obsession. In Austria, it's on coins. In Germany, it's in songs. In Switzerland, it's part of folklore. The plant itself, relatively simple, a member of the daisy family. But its mythology has climbed far higher than its biology. From this cold perch, you descend once again, this time into heat. Welcome to the Australian outback. Red soil, flat horizons, and a tree so strange it nearly defies belief. Meet the boab. Some call it the upside-down tree because of its thick, swollen trunk and scraggly root-like branches. It looks like a bad drawing of a tree that decided to be a bottle instead. And yet, it works. The boab stores water in its trunk, up to 120,000 litres in some specimens. In a place where rain might come only once or twice a year, that's a miracle disguised as bad posture. Aboriginal stories speak of the boab as a tree punished for arrogance, uprooted and planted upside down. Others say its fruits were a gift from the sky beings, containing wisdom for those who dared to open them. You touch the bark. It's smooth, cool, vast. And inside, water, potential, Memory. Boabs can live for thousands of years. Some were used as shelters, prisons, or even message boards by early settlers. One boab tree in Western Australia was so wide it became a temporary jail. The kind of thing that would feel surreal if you didn't already believe a tree could be a bottle, a house, and a myth. As you press forward, the sun sinks lower. The light grows long. And suddenly, you're not in the outback anymore. You're in France, in a garden few know by name, but nearly everyone has dreamed of. The Clos Lucé Garden. Yes, the last home of Leonardo da Vinci. Here, the plants whisper with the weight of genius. Da Vinci's drawings come to life in the form of inventions placed among carefully designed botanical paths. Each tree and vine curated not just for beauty, but for thought. He planted mulberries, believing they fed not just silkworms, but the human mind. He watched how water curled around reeds. He studied the twist of a vine as inspiration for flight mechanics. You wander here among innovation itself, and yet it feels gentle. Birdsong, herbs, a bridge built like a sketch. It's the reminder you didn't know you needed, that ideas grow best in gardens, not in noise, not in war. But here, where the air smells of thyme and chalk, you sit on a bench built from acacia and try to breathe like a Renaissance man. You fail, of course, but the rosemary beside you doesn't seem to mind. The sky has cooled to a sleepy mauve, and your shoes crunch over gravel as you walk forward. Not in a rush, not with a goal, just in that rare, wandering way you do when something ancient is about to unfold. There's a change in the rhythm of the plants, less ornamental, more practical, edible, earthbound. You've arrived in a place where food, medicine, and culture are not separate stories, but twisted together like morning vines. Welcome to Vietnam, and your guide tonight: bamboo, lotus, and a sip of coffee. The bamboo groves of northern Vietnam don't just grow, they organize. They rise in clean ranks, like quiet soldiers with swaying shoulders. But unlike stone temples or painted scrolls, bamboo speaks softly of resilience. It bends, it yields, and yet it returns. You brush your fingers across the surface of one culm. Smooth, waxy. You try to guess its age, but bamboo is tricky like that. Most species flower once every few decades, then die. But before they go, they unleash a botanical final act, a flood of seeds, enough to start an entire forest anew. Some historians believe synchronized bamboo flowering even triggered famines. Imagine, all across a region, the bamboo blooms, then dies. Then rats come for the seeds, then the crops, then the villages. And yet, bamboo also feeds. It shelters, it builds. Vietnamese homes have long been framed in bamboo, floated on bamboo rafts, surrounded by bamboo fences, and eaten from bamboo bowls. In a single day, a single family could use bamboo in 20 different ways without ever thinking about it. You pause to watch a boy slide a cricket into a bamboo flute, creating a soft chirp song to lull it asleep. His grandmother laughs, an old ritual, passed down more gently than any war story. But let's move to something softer, to something that doesn't creak or chirp, to the lotus. Down in the Mekong Delta, the air thickens with the breath of water. You're knee-deep in a pond, and around you float blooms of staggering serenity. White, pink, even soft yellow, rising from the muck, as if they never knew what mud was. The lotus is contradiction personified. It grows in filth. It looks like grace. To Buddhists, it's the path to enlightenment. To Vietnamese poets, it's a metaphor for character. In the mud it grows, but never smells of it. You reach out carefully and touch a petal, smooth as silk, cool with morning mist. The flower doesn't flinch, but beneath it, vast tubers anchor themselves in the deep sludge, drawing from decay to produce beauty. That's one mystery. Why do lotuses repel water so completely? Their leaves are practically waterproof, thanks to nanoscale structures scientists still study. It's called the lotus effect, and engineers try, still, to recreate it on buildings and clothing. And then there's this, the seeds. They can survive for over 1,000 years. No one really knows why. Some say the lotus stores time. Others say it simply refuses to rush. You sit by a woman preparing a dish of lotus stem salad, delicate slices, pickled with vinegar and chili, placed next to grilled prawns. The texture is like crunching through quiet. It's strange how a flower that looks like a dream can taste so alive. And as the scent of river silt and lemongrass follows you down a narrow path, the air begins to shift again. You smell it before you see it. Bitterness, earth, smoke, Vietnamese coffee. You find yourself in the Central Highlands, where the red basalt soil nurtures one of the most productive coffee regions in the world. But this isn't the cafe latte kind. This is Robusta. Strong, bitter, defiant. Here, the coffee trees are small, shrub-like. You expect something grander, more romantic. But coffee doesn't care about romance. It's a scrappy, stubborn plant that was brought here by the French in the 19th century and promptly went native. You watch a woman dry the beans on woven mats. Another pours dark, syrupy brew through a metal fin filter. And there's your mystery. How did this tiny, sour cherry become the morning anthem for half the planet? The answer lies in fermentation, in heat, in time. And in chemistry, most baristas now perform like quiet rituals. But Vietnam has twisted the ritual one step further. Egg coffee. Yes, egg. Whipped yolks, condensed milk, and coffee so dark it almost hums. You take a sip. It tastes like dessert and betrayal. But here's something to keep you awake. Scientists still debate the effects of caffeine on plants themselves. Some believe caffeine acts as a natural pesticide. When a coffee leaf falls, the soil below it becomes slightly toxic to other species. A subtle form of botanical territory marking. Coffee as warrior. You lean back on a chair that's probably too small, watching the mountains haze over. Somewhere, a frog begins to sing, and you realize something. The plants here aren't loud. They don't bloom to be seen. They don't tower to impress. They serve. They endure. And when they're ready, they surprise you. Let's keep moving, quietly. Now you find yourself across an ocean, Brazil, specifically the Amazon, the green lungs of Earth. But this isn't a documentary shot from a drone. This is closer, intimate. You're beneath the canopy, among buttress roots as wide as vans and vines that hang like forgotten thoughts. You pause at a massive tree, Bertholletia excelsa, the Brazil nut tree, one of the tallest in the forest, yet it cannot reproduce without one tiny creature, the orchid bee. And that's the paradox. A 160-foot tall tree that depends on a half-inch long pollinator. Botanists still argue whether this mutualism is sustainable in a changing climate. You crack open a nut. The shell is like iron. Inside, seeds. Delicious, buttery, essential to local economies. But here's the twist. Harvesting Brazil nuts often requires waiting for them to fall. You don't pick from the tree. You respect the cycle. As you wander deeper, another plant catches your attention. It doesn't look impressive. A vine with heart-shaped leaves. But it's ayahuasca, or rather, one part of the brew. You know the myths, visions, journeys, vomiting into the void. But few understand the plant science. Ayahuasca isn't one plant, it's a combination. The Banisteriopsis kaapi vine provides MAO inhibitors. The Psychotria viridis leaves offer DMT. Separately, they do very little. Together, they open doors. No one really knows who figured this out. Modern science marvels. Traditional shamans simply nod. But here's your quirky tidbit. In 2010, ayahuasca was studied for treating depression and PTSD. Some trials showed remarkable results. Others were inconclusive. Scholars, predictably, continue to debate. You stare at the vine, twisting. Bark like braided rope. It's older than you, older than your fears. And somehow it feels curious. You step back, slowly, and look upward. There's so much green you forget the sky exists. But the journey's not done yet. There's one last garden tonight. Not ancient, not wild. Artificial, but no less holy. Singapore. The gardens by the bay rise like bioluminescent sentinels against the city skyline. Super trees, metal frames laced with climbing plants and solar panels. A fusion of nature and code. You walk along the skyway, hundreds of feet above the ground. Below you, orchids, bromeliads, ferns. Above you, photovoltaic leaves turning light into power. You're in a forest that hums. This is your fringe fact. Some super trees are self-watering. Others regulate temperature. Some host real ecosystems. And many tourists mistake them for science fiction sets. But they're real, and somehow they don't feel unnatural. Inside the cloud forest dome, a waterfall spills from a steel cliff covered in moss and air plants. You follow a spiral walkway. Every step takes you into a cooler, higher zone. And here's the open debate. Can this model work elsewhere? Is this the future of cities? Or just a beautiful illusion? You sit beneath a canopy of hanging ferns, sipping water that tastes faintly of ozone and orchids. Outside, the city glows like circuitry. Nature, reimagined. And as the hour grows late, the plants lean in closer. They have more to say. You wake, or maybe you never truly slept, beneath a canopy of citrus trees. The breeze is gentler now, warm and syrupy, carrying the smell of something sweet and faintly sharp. It's the kind of scent that makes you think of kitchens and gardens, of memory and mischief. You lift your head and you're in southern Italy, Amalfi to be precise. But you're not here for pizza or beaches. You're here for lemons. Not just any lemons. These are Sfusato Amalfitano, the long, thick-skinned variety draped in legends, recipes, and perfume bottles. You pluck one from the tree with care. It feels heavier than expected, almost like it's hoarding secrets in its pulp. Here's something few people know. In the Middle Ages, lemons weren't just fruit. They were medicine. Sailors prized them to stave off scurvy. Women soaked handkerchiefs in lemon oil to mask unpleasant odors. Monks planted entire citrus groves in monastic silence, claiming each blossom was like a bell of the soul. Botanists still argue whether the lemon is a true species or a hybrid, a zesty puzzle somewhere between citron and bitter orange. Either way, it doesn't seem to care about labels. You cut one open. The juice stings your fingers, almost laughing at your sleepiness. And here's your fringe detail. In 17th century Naples, some barbers used lemon rinds as razors. Not exactly OSHA approved, but surprisingly effective for softening stubble. You lean back under the boughs and let your mind wander. The citrus trees of Amalfi have outlasted wars, droughts, and disco. Their roots hold centuries of kitchen secrets. Somewhere nearby, a grandmother is cooking with a zest she doesn't measure, because she doesn't need to. But let's move eastward now, across sea and steppe, until the architecture softens and the winds taste like spice. Welcome to Iran, specifically the gardens of Shiraz. You're walking on cool stone tiles, the kind that stay cold even under desert sun. Around you, orange blossoms hang heavy on their branches. Pomegranate shrubs cluster like bashful courtiers. The air, it smells like poetry. This is the concept of paradise, from the Persian word paridesa, meaning walled garden. And tonight, you're strolling through one. Each Iranian garden follows a principle: 4 quadrants, divided by water channels, symbolizing the 4 rivers of Eden. Trees are planted not just for fruit, but for shade, scent, and spiritual elevation. You sit by a small fountain where a man is floating rose petals on the water. Not for a festival, not for Instagram, just because. That's your first mystery. How did something as practical as irrigation become an expression of the divine? No one agrees. They just agree it works. The pomegranate tree, Punica granatum, stands quietly to your left. In Islamic law, it's a fruit of paradise. In science, it's a powerhouse of antioxidants. In kitchens, it's joy in ruby form. You pick one from a branch and feel its strange heft. Ancient Egyptians buried pomegranates with the dead, hoping the seeds would nourish them in the next life. In Iran, they crush the seeds into molasses for stews, juices, or late-night snacks with a sprinkle of salt. And scholars still debate whether the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden was not an apple, but a pomegranate. You smirk. The pomegranate doesn't confirm or deny. Further in, you spot a cypress, tall, narrow, elegant. In Zoroastrian belief, cypress trees were sacred, said to be planted by kings and blessed by fire. Unlike other trees, they don't bend easily. They rise, always. You sit in the shade, and for a moment, you understand the stillness of empires. Let's continue. We head now to East Africa, to Ethiopia, where coffee began. No, not Starbucks coffee, not flavored syrup or foam art, but real coffee, wild, unbothered, spiritual. You're standing in the Kaffa region, yes, that's where the name came from, amid forests where Arabica coffee still grows, like it did before humans learned how to crave mornings. The tale goes like this. A goat herder named Kuldi noticed his flock behaving oddly, dancey, spry, energized. He traced the source to red cherries on a tree and decided to try them himself. Whether or not it's true, the story has charm. So does the plant. Arabica coffee, Coffea arabica, prefers altitude, shade, and gentle rainfall. It's shy, prone to disease, and deeply picky. But once roasted, ground, and brewed, it sings. You kneel to examine the berries. Green at first, then bright red when ripe. Inside each is a seed, what we call a bean. The aroma, hidden. You have to unlock it through heat and time. And here's your strange tidbit. In ancient Ethiopian rituals, coffee wasn't sipped alone. It was shared in a ceremony called bana. 3 rounds, each with a name. The last cup, baraka, was believed to bring blessing. A woman nearby roasts beans over a small coal burner. She fans the smoke toward you. It smells like the edge of memory and conversation. Somewhere, someone plays a soft flute. Botanists still argue whether wild Arabica can survive climate change, or if we'll one day forget the true taste of coffee. You sip slowly. It's earthy, bitter, alive. Let's fly farther now, to Australia, to a tree that both heals and hides. The eucalyptus. You arrive under silver leaves. The scent hits first. Menthol, resin, lightning in a bottle. Eucalyptus isn't shy. It announces itself. It spreads. Over 700 species exist, and most of them are uniquely Australian. Their bark peels. Their flowers are mostly hidden. Their oil is powerful enough to soothe a cough or cause a fire. That's your paradox. The eucalyptus tree evolved to burn. Its fallen leaves feed wildfires. Its oil is flammable. And after a blaze, it grows back, faster. Some call it a phoenix tree. You watch a koala blink slowly on a branch. Despite the myths, it's not drunk from the leaves. It's just conserving energy. Eucalyptus isn't nutritious, it's survival food. Detoxed through specialized livers and endless naps. And here's your fringe fact. Eucalyptus trees can sweat gold. In certain regions, gold particles are absorbed from deep soil and stored in their leaves. Scientists confirmed this in 2013. So yes, golden trees are real. You smile. No one told the koala. As you walk, the scent of eucalyptus clings to your skin. It's oddly comforting. Maybe that's why it's found in balms, salves, and sleepy teas. A leaf that smells like breath. Let's drift now to Japan, to the garden you never forget. You step into Kyoto's moss temple, Saihoji, and time stops. Over 120 varieties of moss blanket the temple grounds like velvet. Soft, quiet, almost surreal. You've never seen green glow like this before. The garden doesn't show off. It absorbs. Every footstep is silenced by spongy ground. You walk slower, then slower still, until it feels like floating. Buddhists believe moss represents humility, patience, and endurance. It thrives where others fail. It drinks from mist. It asks for little. There's a riddle here. Why does moss feel so eternal when it's actually fragile? Botanists disagree. Poets just nod. You brush your hand over a patch. It springs back without complaint. A nearby pine drops a needle like a sigh. Nothing else moves. That's your final story tonight. A plant that doesn't bloom, doesn't boast, but still holds power. Moss, that old green whisperer. It's been here for 450 million years, and it'll still be here long after us. You sit, unmoving, and for a moment, so do your thoughts.